Hey everybody, what's going on? Slicky Gamer, Scott W. Perry here, and we're back with another edition of Retro Chronicles, where we're taking a look at the history of WWF, WWE video games. We're up finally to the 16-bit era, and the Super Nintendo Sega Genesis era was very interesting for WWE. Four games were released for both systems, both with the same titles, but the first two had different rosters to them and were released at different times. The 16-bit era was a very exciting time. I was a teenager. I just became a teenager when they first came out, so getting a lot of these games, it really was the first time that the games that you saw at the arcade or played at the arcade, you got the same feeling when you played them at home. Sega Genesis had a bit of a slow start, but really picked up in 1991 with the release of Sonic the Hedgehog, and Nintendo had some serious competition. And for the next 3 to 4 years, it was really a glorious time because they were trying to outdo each other. Both companies, that the consumer were rewarded for it with a lot of great games. Sound familiar? Seems like WWF would do that with another company a few years. Anyway, but in order to get started, WWF still had the Acclaim license, and they did make that leap to the 16-bit era, and they began it with a very simple title, since all the games on the LJN, on the NES, LJN systems were WrestleMania. We'll just continue the WrestleMania trend. And the first one came out in 1992, and it was Super WrestleMania for the Super Nintendo. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat, graphically, it leaps and bounds above anything you saw on a Nintendo. The wrestlers looked a lot like their counterparts. I remember the selection screen were digitized photographs of the wrestlers themselves. The music of the theme songs, if you hold on to the, on the person select screen, if you hold on to, that wrestler long enough, you hear their theme music. And some of them for the 16-bit era sounded great. The Undertaker's in particular is great, but I haven't gone to the roster yet. We're going to go through that. There were 10 on this game. And of course, we have the usual three: Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase. They seem to be a staple on all these games. We also have Jake the Snake Roberts, The Undertaker, making his debut, Sid Justice. And we had two tag teams in here. We had the Natural Disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon, and arguably the greatest tag team in history, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal. Now, there were a couple of modes in this that I really liked in this game. I played this game a lot when it came out. It was just a simple, you had one-on-one, you had tag team. But the mode I really liked that you had in it was a 4-on-4 Survivor Series match. And it felt like a real Survivor Series match. Now with 10 wrestlers in the game, you couldn't have much variety on it, but they would only have like one guy in the corner, but if you hit the select button, it would change out the other guy that you had. The other thing is, once your guy lost energy, he wouldn't regain it. So the games can go by a little bit quickly, and it's simple. One guy is eliminated on a team, it becomes 4-on-3 or 4-on-2. You can have double countouts. You can have, things like that. You would have a screen of Howard Finkel introducing each person before the match in the ring. You would have them on each side of the ring, and Howard Finkel would be like in this corner and in this corner. It'd just be text, but it's cool to see, the late great Howard Finkel in these games. His voice is just phenomenal. We'll get to that in a future episode. The one thing about this game that I didn't particularly care for, that was disappointing, is you have all the wrestlers, you have this great looking game, but nobody has a different moveset. They all have the same moves, and they're pretty much generic. So it would have been good to see, at least Randy Savage come off with his flying elbow. You kind of can. He's the only one you can, because everybody had an elbow drop. But, Sid Justice, powerbomb. Hulk Hogan, you do the leg drop. I don't think they could have done a Doomsday device with the graphical capabilities at the time, but you could at least have Undertaker do a tombstone, Sid Justice do a power bomb. They were very simple finishing maneuvers, so I would have liked to have seen that. And because of that, there's no difference really between which wrestler you choose. Nobody is a stronger attribute than the other. But this really sold a lot of copies and really did well for Acclaim for the Super Nintendo in the early years. I actually got this for Christmas in '92, I believe. This was a Christmas gift, and It's one game I still like to this day. But a few months after the Super Nintendo version was released, it became available on Sega Genesis. And, it's interesting because you have the LGN logo on Super Nintendo. For Genesis, Acclaim used a different logo. They called it Flying Edge. I don't know why. I don't know the specifics of that. Weird, but interesting. Now, this game, graphically, the Super Nintendo version is better. But I prefer playing the Genesis version for a couple of reasons. Number one, now the roster is down from 10 to 8, okay? But they have finishing moves, and there's a bit of a difference between each guy. And I also like who they picked. Once again, you have Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Ted DiBiase. These three are the norm for every one of these older games. But in addition, you have Ted DiBiase's partner, Erwin R. Shyster. So Money Incorporated is well represented in the game. You have Papa Shango, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, and two others. Ultimate Warrior makes his return after a couple of games off in the game. And the last one is one of my all-time favorites, and I was so thrilled to actually have him in the game. And that is the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. And in this one, it's the same modes as the other single match, tag team match, 4 and 4 Survivor Series match. But they did add a championship mode where you take on the other 7 opponents. And the difficulty got much harder as you progressed into it. I only managed to beat it a couple of times. It is horrendously hard. I wouldn't recommend it unless you play it on an emulator and can save your progress, because it's one of those things where if you lose once, you're done. You got to start from the beginning. The championship screen at the end, it's okay, but overall, for both of these games, it really set the standard. It was the beginning of the 16-bit era. So while they weren't perfect, it really showed what could happen on this era. And the next few games that came out for it really, really improved upon it. We'll get to that later. But Super WrestleMania for both systems really, really showed how much fun these games could be and how much more they could go beyond from this. And I enjoyed it. And it was, like I said, as I said in my Steel Cage Challenge one, this was at a time where WWF was in a transitional period. So they were really trying to figure out what the next steps were. And I feel like the 16-bit era, they were trying to figure out, okay, what can we do? What can we get away with? All right. Anyway, that's it for this edition of Retro Chronicles. And I am Slick D Gamer, Scott W. Perry, signing off. Take care. Have yourself a great day. 1, 2, 3.